hang on a minute. What caused Red Bull's worm to turn? What does even turning of the worm mean? Explain! Well, allow me to get into a little bit more detail, and it could potentially leave Max just saying, urge to move, rising. Jonathan Wheatley may not be the most obvious name for many people, but when you step back and look what he has done for Red Bull and Formula One in his time in the position, he is more than you think, including being one of the people involved in what happened in the final race of 2021, and that's all I'm going to be saying on the subject. Thank you very much. You can do your own research in that regard. What you can glean from the statement is that the importance of Wheatley to the Red Bull team, or should I say was pivotal. You might be wondering what a sporting director is. Is it similar to the technical director or the team principal? Well, kinda. Essentially, what a sporting director does is make sure that the entire operation on track for that team runs like clockwork. Everything's where it's meant to be, people are where they're meant to be, and basically things just run smoothly because of one guy. Not only that, but they are also a walking encyclopedia in them being incredibly versed in the FIA regulations. Wheatley and his copy of F1's rulebook are ready to go in case they wish to protest anything or someone's protesting them about something they did. Basically, he's the guy carrying the Red Bull shield and Christian Horner's like, oh no, someone's attacking us with technical regulations, and then Jonathan's like, stand back, Christian, I've got this, Article 3.1 says... Yeah, or you want to boil it down even further, he's the, actually. And we briefly heard him in action in 2021 when the sport opened up the FIA team radio link for occasional snippets of teams talking to the race director. Well, I say talking, mainly just complaining, which was interesting. And throughout the entire season, we basically just heard Toto and Jonathan going to Michael Massey, that was wrong, change that, why have you done that? And then it all boiled down to what happened in Abu Dhabi, and then we never heard about that feature ever again. And we will never hear that again. Now, you might be immediately thinking, oh, well, that's an important person then, that, oh, this is going to immediately cast the end of Red Bull racing, that they are doomed to failure, and that Zach Brown's protestations of the team is going to eat itself alive from within is coming true, and that he was right, and whoa there. As much as it seems like things are falling apart at Red Bull, we do need to halt our pitchforks for a moment here. Because Dr. Obbs on Twitter does make a valid point here. This isn't necessarily the death knell of Red Bull racing. This is, like I said at the beginning of the video, a turning of the worm. This perhaps could be seen as the biggest test that the team has ever had to face when it comes to a personnel shift. This could be a refreshing of Red Bull. Junior members who have been cast down to jobs never thinking they would actually progress because these people have been around for nearly 20 years will now have that opportunity. Red Bull are saying it themselves, that this will give younger personnel the opportunity to run the team and show their experience and what they've been able to learn under the tutelage of more experienced hands. Now that's all very well and good, that's perfectly valid. How that is handled remains to be seen. It's still up in the air because Red Bull has been basically the same for 20 years at this point. A new Red Bull? That's going to be something that we are looking forward to see probably, but whether or not it'll actually yield better results or worse results, yeah, hold the phone there. This could be seen as more of an intermission where the team refreshes itself, and as Christian Horner said in his statement to the media, the team is planning to change up its team structure in the coming weeks anyway. Sorry Mr. Horner, but me and my little friend here, the foe of doubt, have a few opinions on this statement and the way it was handled yesterday. For those of you who might be new here, first of all, welcome. This is the foam of doubt. This is basically my equivalent of a tinfoil hat because I don't have any tinfoil to hand, and yeah, that's what it is. Law, how you've fallen. You're clearly foaming it in. For starters, this is yet another example of Red Bull choosing to take control of the narrative of events regarding somebody leaving the team. What really caused heads to turn with the news of their sporting director leaving at the end of the year was that Red Bull were the ones to drop the news first, not Wheatley, not Audi. This wasn't down to your typical situation where a journalist somewhere on social media leaves a cryptic message like what that one guy did about Alonso's future, and everyone was going like, oh no, what's happening? Tell us more, please, we need to know. No, that did not happen. This news came straight from the source, from Red Bull's own social media pages, as well as their WhatsApp group that is available to all journalists. It all came out at once, it was orchestrated, it was well-timed, it was coordinated. They wanted to have it on their own terms and make sure that they established the dominance in this situation that, oh, this is fine, this is not an emergency, we're not panicking, you know, we knew this was coming, so we wish Jonathan well. Like when they were caught short when Adrian Newey earlier in the year broke the news about him leaving. They denied they were even aware of the news that he was leaving. driving. And then they decided to confirm it at the worst possible moment around the anniversary of Ayrton Senna's death, when Adrian had specifically said not to do that. And may I remind you that this is a very serious situation, because Brazil has not forgotten what happened on that day when Ayrton Senna tragically lost his life, and Adrian Newey is more than aware that he was partly responsible in designing the car, which was the last car that Senna ever drove, and he carries that guilt to this day. He has shown many times how sorry he has been to try and rectify the situation, to try and not draw attention to himself, and not be seen as a glory hog. No, he's been wanting to be in the backrooms and not take up too much attention, only when maybe he's designing a car. What Red Bull did back then, that was really them wanting to try and take control, and that was just wrong. It was quite a callous move on the team's part, who wished to take back what they had let slip through their fingers. Now they've done the same thing, and it was Audi and Wheatley who were caught napping and left scrabbling around to make a statement. When I made my breaking news stream yesterday, I was just as wildly surprised as everyone else. We were all going, what? Where did this come from? And then we found out that Audi had absolutely no idea this was happening. They were blindsided by the situation, that Red Bull were the ones in control, and then Audi were just like, really? That happened? Although, having said that, some folks were pointing out to me that Jonathan Wheatley had talked about being a team principal one day. It was one of his dreams and aspirations. And in some sense, he kind of did that as Red Bull's team manager back in the day. So, you know, this was just something that was going to happen, but maybe not right this second. In a way, I think by Red Bull doing this, they got exactly what they wanted. They wanted to brand a potential rival of theirs in a couple of years as a joke. Oh, Audi has no control over their narrative, over their team. They have no idea who their new team principal is. Oh, what fools they look. Ah ha 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 ha. Let's point at them and laugh. Ah ha 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 ha. Which is exactly what many people did. Thousands of people on social media were going like, typical Mattia Binotto move. What a clown show. But come on, Mattia Binotto being able to manifest that vest pocket maneuver on his first day. Wow, what an absolute coup for the team. And it does prove to me that Binotto is in the right job, as he knows where to find the right people, appeal to what they dream and aspire to, and make it happen. And as to Audi having no clue about this news even happening, this does not surprise me at all, because one of their mission statements for this team became very obvious last week, because the whole mission of the Audi F1 team is to be an independent organisation with the backing of the Audi board and the VW group, that they can run the team as they see fit, so long as they make sure that Audi is not brought into disrepute or something like that. The board only wading in for really serious decisions which require a lot of money or the approval of the shareholders. Kind of like what Mercedes do with big decisions. This action of Red Bull seemingly proves to me that this was a bit of a shock departure of the team in the here and now. That this was a case to undermine the move and make a potential future rival of theirs look completely disorganised. And it sort of worked, but not for me. In my opinion, this is quite the major hire, the major coup of Sauber. I thought that they were going to be getting Mike Crack from Aston Martin, since he has history at that team going back to the 2000s. But honestly, this is probably even better, because this guy knows Red Bull inside and out. He can make things happen as Audi become Audi. Now, I must point out, it's not like Jonathan Wheatley is going to suddenly turn up in Hinville at the beginning of next year. No, he's got to do that gardening leave thing, which many senior staff members of F1 teams have to do. Basically, a year out on the sidelines before they can then step in. But honestly, stepping in at the beginning of 2026, that's probably not much different to people going into 2026 already in an F1 team, because it is a relative unknown. And he will be there for the pre-season testing, which this year is reportedly going to be consisting of 3 3-day test sessions. Okay, that's all very well and good. So what exactly is Jonathan Wheatley going to do? Is he just going to be a standard team principal? Well, Audi now have had time to come out with a statement and have shown exactly what they intend to do with Wheatley and Binotto there. Jonathan will be the guy in charge of everything at the track, basically doing the same thing he's doing right now, only with the moniker of team principal, ensuring everything is in order and the one to make the calls there. Whereas Mattia will be back at base, overseeing everything in the factory, as well as in Audi's mission control, the people there communicating with the people at the track, to keep in close contact with the engineers and mechanics, away from the media, which will suit the chap down to the ground. This is exactly where Mattia needs to be. He looked really awkward in front of the cameras because he was not meant to be there. Now he can do exactly what he loves, tinkering with the engine, talking into mechanics away from answering inane questions. This is going to be perfect. Okay, so you might be thinking, oh, okay, so what? From the sound of it, this guy just seems like a bookworm who Red Bull particularly won't really miss. Okay, they might not be as on the ball when it comes to protesting other teams, but yeah, alright, fine. He's a guy who maintained a checklist, big deal. I mean, he's not an Adrian Newey who helped build their car, which is the thing that gets results on track. Well, as journalist Ben Hunt points out in his op-ed for Autosport, this could be a bigger hole for Red Bull to try and fill than Adrian Newey. By the way, I really recommend Ben Hunt's book about the history of Red Bull growing wings, and the audiobook especially, because the guy who narrates it is absolutely fantastic. He really gives it a go, and he gets stuck into things, and he's not afraid of doing voices and really getting infused. And, for example, he actually does a really funny example of the Alonso GP2 engine quote. It's hilarious. I do recommend it. Ben Hunt points out that whilst Christian Horner knew for a long time that Newey was wishing to scale back his involvement with the team, probably due to the ongoing Renault maladies in the 2010s and the turbo hybrid era, as well as growing weary with teams and the FIA constantly crying foul about his inventions, the team therefore brought in a way where Adrian Newey would continue to work with the team. He could then maybe do some more with the technology department, build some hypercars, build some boats and what have you, anything he would like to, and then the day-to-day role would be handled by a guy called Pierre Vacher, and that's been the case since around 2013-2014. Adrian Newey is still the main designer of the team, but he is not responsible for every single little bit and minutiae of the particular cars since maybe like the RB10 or 11 or something. Vacher's not some kind of new guard or a sudden change in philosophy or anything like that. He will have learnt a lot from Adrian, so there is some kind of stable transfer of power here. Although it has been a bit of a bumpy ride with Pierre Vacher not having Adrian Newey's hand to guide him at all as of late, with the RB20 sort of going off-piste in recent months, and not even a semi-reset in Hungary could address the issue. In fact, you could argue that the Hungarian Grand Prix this year was probably one of the worst conducted races in Red Bull's recent history. It was an absolute farce, with Max Verstappen completely tearing the team to shreds. Luckily, they were able to bounce back in Spa, but still, the damage was done, a lot of criticism was hurled their way, they were made to look like fools, and I don't think Christian Horner appreciated that. And speaking of Max, this is where he comes into play here. Now, I know you're going to collectively groan and say, Law, stop it, he's not going to Mercedes, there is no deal. Hey, relax, you're right, there is no deal, not right now, no. Toto has said that nothing is happening at the moment, but you've got to admit, the rumours about Max Verstappen going to another team, or out of the sport altogether, or particularly Mercedes, they are not going to go away, they are only going to intensify with every single senior Red Bull staff member that leaves. But what I will say is that Jonathan Wheatley departing, such a major figure in how the team operates day-to-day at the track, will be noticed by the Verstappen camp. And, yeah, as we know, Max's father does like to make it clear that he is currently not pleased with the management structure as it is. He will take every single bit of ammunition he can get to bring down Horner a peg or two. It's become really obvious, and it's actually become a little bit sad. With Wheatley headed off for a brand new team, 2025 will be a very crucial year for the entire team. Sure, he's not going anywhere this year and things will continue as they are for the next few months, which is why I doubt Max will try and cut a deal imminently. Red Bull needs to have a new person ready to go to fill in the gap that Wheatley will leave, and that will require them to most likely ensure that things will stay the same, as the entire fabric of the team since 2006 has been built around those two men, Jonathan and Christian, overseeing the team's evolution from Jaguar. We all know that Christian loves the idea of stability and continuity, and I'm pretty sure that Max likes the same thing. He'd like to keep stability and continuity in the sense that Red Bull keep winning races. However, as much as I appreciate that to maintain the status quo, no matter what you do, when a person leaves their job and is replaced by somebody else or other people, trying to establish the same exact routine, the same way it has been for 2 decades, is practically impossible. There are going to be variables, there are going to be changes, whether you like it or not. They'll take time to get up to speed, they might make some mistakes along the way, which see things either run late or be in the wrong place or not there at all, which will irritate people, especially Max or Checo. I'm not wishing to cast doubt on anybody who's taking up that role. Whoever is taking that role up after such a legend in the sport, good luck to them. I really wish them well. It is going to be a bit of a learning curve, let's just say that, because Red Bull is not like a Williams or a Sauber or something like that, where it's a low team, there aren't that many expectations. No, this is Red Bull. They are a championship team, and they need people to be on it immediately, from the first minute of them being in the job. No, the first second. And it's typical for any person taking up any job for there to be a transition where things aren't exactly running efficiently, from the sporting director to the person who makes the tea. Trust me, as somebody who cut their teeth as a runner in the post-production industry, you really do know how to make a good cup of tea. And I don't even drink tea, but if you ever ask me for a cup of tea, I can make you a mean cup of tea. There will be a way that things are done, a certain routine, including what Max and Checo get up to, what they prefer, all the way down to how many pairs of racing overalls they have in their driver's room, and in the case of Max, where he might want a sim rig. These are the little things that should not be ignored, because these little quibbles and disagreements, they can build up over time. Resentment can manifest itself, and it could ultimately lead to an explosion of irritation, just like we saw on the radio in Hungary, and that was with the existing management structure. With a new one, it could turn out great, or it could be an absolute catastrophe. But then again, I do have to point out what the statement said is that the existing management structure, it may not exist in a few weeks' time. They might feel the need to go, okay, losing Jonathan is a bit of a loss, so maybe we try things differently. So instead of having one guy in charge of the rulebook and making sure everyone's there on time, we split the role with 3 or 4 different people instead of one guy. Okay, it might mean paying more people, but it means that the responsibility is handed off to different individuals. It's a little bit less stressful. That is a very valid point. People do like to do that. McLaren like to do that with splitting up the development of the car. Alpine did that, them copying it. That's fair enough. But then again, having more people in there, too many cooks, could spoil the broth. There could be miscommunication. People might have different ways of doing things. There's a feedback loop to then take into consideration instead of having just one guy who knows everything. In short, it's a lot of unknowns, and whilst unknowns come with a sense of optimism that it could refresh the team and make things much better, steady the ship after months of uncertainty in response to the allegations laid at the doorstep of the CEO, it does cast doubt as well. What if it doesn't work out? What if it ends up being suboptimal? What if Max doesn't like it? Because let's be real, there's already a lot of discord and rumours surrounding the team at the moment, and not just the idea of Christian Horner and now people leaving, but the drivers as well. Their lineup is being thrown into doubt, and this is why I'm really holding on to this tightly, because there have been so many weird and wild and wacky rumours that have come out in the last few days that I really have to stipulate that these are rumours, they are unsubstantiated, but they are spreading like wildfire anyway, which will not be the music to Max Verstappen's ears. But I will tell you anyway, because it's absolutely bonkers. But just remember, hold the foam, my friend. This in the wake of Sergio Perez being retained, despite all the signs this far pointing toward him being removed, with reports that Daniel and Max took a helicopter together away from the Spa track in the assumption that they were going to be working together again for the first time in 7 years. That the Verstappen family were told one thing and then find out 24 hours later from other sources another thing was happening. And then maybe perhaps Liberty Media got involved, and then Disney Plus might have got involved because they just released a big docuseries about Checo in their native country. And that maybe Sergio Perez's main investor Carlos Slim stepped in and told Red Bull, no, you are not doing that because we've got to think about ticket sales for the Mexican Grand Prix. And remember, I am holding on to the foam tightly here. I really don't want any of this to be true. I hope it's not true, because if it is, then Red Bull has essentially become the establishment. They're not the wild rebellious team, forever rebel. Yeah, right. So all I ask you to do is pay close attention to what happens next year and how Red Bull manages to stay the course when it comes to this major shift in their operations. Because as we know, nobody gets more irritated about what goes on at Red Bull than a certain father-son duo. And yeah, just that's not going to end up well. And Red Bull's new management will be really put to the test. It might work or it might not. The car might have found its feet again, or it might not. The rumour mill might have calmed down, or it might not. But one thing is for sure though, next year, who is going to be far less encumbered when it comes to drama online, speculation about the operations of the team, and just drama in general? Mercedes. And quite frankly, Toto will be more than happy to not be the centre of attention anymore. Well, okay, at least not on his own terms, that is. He can control the narrative again at his team. Because Lewis Hamilton has certainly brought them a lot of glory and brought them a lot of success and sponsors and money. Yeah, but it's clear that right now, the situation online, it's become a force of its own that I don't think even Lewis Hamilton can control. And Mercedes are getting competitive again, and if Toto's team carries themselves off as calm, collected, and drama-free, with George as their lead driver and whoever they choose to race with him, it might be all Max needs to see in which to make a switch. A car which is improving at a time which is now far less riddled with baggage, and has already weathered a change in personnel in recent years. They've been through all the turmoil, which Red Bull is really starting to find itself in. They're going through a staff shift right now. And it all depends whether or not Max is prepared to put up with this transition and hope for the best in the next few years, or he might just go, no, I can't be bothered with any of that, I don't like change, I'm going to go somewhere else, bye. One last thing I want to mention. Adrian Newey leaving? Yeah, That was a pretty major loss, but, you know, he was sort of on the wane anyway. They were prepared for that. One swallow does not make a summer, they say. Well, with Wheatley going, well, what about 2? Or 3, with Rob Marshall, their senior engineer since the beginning practically, going to McLaren. Okay, that's another one. And Rob Marshall's departure really didn't gain that much mainstream attention because he's not a Newey or a Wheatley who appears on the world feed regularly. But if you get somebody like, say, Hannah Schmitz, for example, leaving, who is on the pit wall quite often, their chief strategist, then you might start to get a little bit nervous as to where the future of Red Bull might go. Who knows? There might be an even more fundamental change in the Red Bull management system. Christian Horner might decide to cast himself off into exile in the Red Bull powertrains division, away from the media, away from all of the attention. He can then focus on the thing he's been dreaming for so long, his own power unit. He's not at the whims and wants of Renault or Honda, who might pull the plug at any moment and they have to find another supplier. He can then look at his engine and go, "My precious." Or he might not. Now, stepping back to Audi for a second, Binotto has already proven he's quite a dab hand when it comes to brokering deals for the team, Wheatley being part of his grandmaster plan. To find out why I think Mattia Binotto being on that team is certainly no joke, you can go and watch this video next, and seriously, I think this team is now becoming a force to be reckoned with.